Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. It is so good to have you with us for this week's show. We are excited about this next 30 minutes. As always, I want to kick off our show by thanking the community partners who make it possible for us to be here each and every week. Prime 47 downtown, Shepherd Community Center, and Tesco. Thank you all for supporting our show, our organization, and Christian counseling. Well, tonight we are so blessed to be welcoming our first guest. Shonna Majors is here. Shonna is the Executive Director of Brightwood Community Center. Shonna, thank you so much for joining us. You're new to this role.
Yes.
You've only been in it for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. Before we talk about it, I want to talk about what you used to do and the transition you've made in your life. What did you do prior to this new role a few months ago?
Sure. So thanks for having me.
Of course.
Before I came to Brightwood Community Center, I served under Mayor Hogshead's administration as the first Director of Community Violence Reduction for the city of Indianapolis.
Wow.
Big mouthful.
Yeah, that's a big mouthful, and now a big transition in your life to Executive Director of Brightwood Community Center. Yeah. What has that transition been like for you?
It has been a beautiful, great transition. I feel like I am able to better serve our community, being in the community, and not in the ivory tower. And so I'm just happy to be where the action takes place, where the change occurs, where transformation is possible. And I thank God all the time for this smooth transition. My board has been great, and so I'm excited.
That's amazing, because your old job sounds like you really had the chance to make an impact, but now it feels maybe like you're more down in the weeds with people, touching real lives. Is that the way it feels for you?
Yeah. Well, in my previous role, I was out, in the community as well, but Brightwood just holds a special place in my heart. My family and I grew up there, and so it's like coming back home and getting to help make Brightwood the best Brightwood it can be. And so I miss my former work, but I still get to do the aspects that I love the most, which was being in the community.
That's awesome. For those that don't know Brightwood real well, tell us about the work that you're engaged in there.
Sure. Brightwood Community Center, due to COVID, had shut down like most places and cut down on some of the services available. But since I've been in this role, we have expanded our service provision. So we have a nice menu of things for the community to take advantage of, such as our after-school tutoring program for our littles. And then we have our summer youth camp coming up that I'm super excited about. And because I love to play outside and be in the water and all that. So that gives me an excuse to play with the kids. And then we have some parenting enrichment courses that are coming up, as well as we have our food pantry still that we do every month. And we're expanding to workforce development, where we can offer some entry-level healthcare training to the community, as well as legal services. So we're bringing lawyers and prosecutors' office into the community where people can talk to them and not be, intimidated by that process. And we've been helping people get their driver's license reinstated and removing barriers for people to be able to move forward.
So Shawna, you're doing a lot of things that obviously meet physical needs and very practical help with people's day-to-day lives. But underneath it all, there's this mental health component to it. And I know your organization is passionate about that. Tell me about how those two go together, the physical and the mental, really more than that, the emotional, the spiritual, how they all play together to impact somebody's life.
So we definitely at Brightwood have a focus on mental health and helping people. I mean, COVID really just kind of iced the cake, if you will. And we already have people that have standing trauma, generational trauma. And so we really just want to infuse our love and our work with that mental health piece and get into the families, get into the homes to really help get to the core of a lot of people's issues and help them find ways. So, looking at developing strong partnerships in that arena as well, I think it can make a healthier, safer community for all of us.
Is it that more people are in that boat, or things have gotten worse for the people who are already in that boat, or because of the state of the world, is it both?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that we had some underlying issues that were already happening, especially in the Brightwood area. It's a low-income area. It's high crime, poor education, and so when you have all of those societal ills already happening, and that mental health thing it's right there, as well as substance abuse. And so we really want to make sure that we're a safe place for people to come to receive those services. And I also, with the kids, do a lot of the social emotional learning pieces, to try to sneak it in, if you will, because a lot of people there's a stigma with mental health, right? And so we want to make sure that we're being good neighbors by providing that information and those services so that people can heal themselves and move on.
I know there's no silver bullet. There's no magic formula to help all people with all problems. So how do you do that? It sounds like you have a variety of programs that try to touch lives in a lot of different ways. How do you go about setting a plan and a vision of what we should be doing, what we should be engaged in, and how we're going to help people through this myriad of issues they're dealing with?
Well, it starts with the people. You know, you have to talk to the community and find out what it is they want and what they need. And you look around and you do a survey of all the resources in the area. And I have become friends with all of our resource partners in the area so that if there's something I don't do at Brightwood, then I can refer them to a partner and they can still receive those services.
I suspect that in a community like Brightwood, simply listening and being engaged is a big first step, and maybe for those residents, something they've never really had before.
It's true. People love to be heard, you know, and so from time to time we'll be doing community conversations on various topics that concern women, men, children, seniors, families, just so people have and that's how Brightwood Community Center started, as a safe space for the community to come together and talk about what's happening and come up with solutions. I don't think that the government or all these other places have all the answers. The answers come from the community itself.
That makes sense. Shawna, thank you so much for joining us, but more than that, thank you for the work that you're doing in the community.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Occasionally, we've introduced you to some of the corporate counseling clients of Crosswinds Counseling. And with more than 50 corporate partners, there are a lot of companies doing a great amount of work across a wide range of industries. Tonight, Matt Gillette, the owner of Gillette Wealth Management, one of those partners, is here with us. Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tell us a little bit about Gillette Wealth Partners. What does your organization do?
Sure, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We help people with their planning. We started Gillette Wealth Management 16 years ago, and we help a lot of business owners, a lot of executives, a lot of physicians and surgeons sort out their financial planning. But oftentimes it's a lot more than that, as you might imagine.
Of course.
When you get into money and family businesses, there's a lot of things to sort out with that sort of business. So I got into the business. Both of my parents were people of service. My mom was a Christian school teacher, worked for a very, very small private Christian school, and my dad was a psychotherapist. And I saw the impact they had helping people, and I thought, well, gosh, it'd be nice to help them, but also have some financial independence, as well. And so the opportunity came along to start the business, and I did, and God's blessed every moment of it ever since.
Wow.
But that's kind of how we got started. So we've been able to help lots and lots of families with their planning, and hopefully many, many more.
I want to circle back to your parents, because I'm sure that gave you a unique look into the mental health world. But through financial planning, our finances are so intricately tied with our mental health, our emotional well-being. I'm sure you've seen that through your clients over these 16 years.
Yeah, I mean, we often talk about financial security, and like financial peace, and where does that really come from? And throughout the pandemic, you really got to see that. Your eyes got open to, where someone saw their source. Was their source their business? Was it the market? Was it God? Where was their real true source of, income or really safety? And our job is really to help identify that, and help protect it. Yeah. So if we were sitting down with you, I'd listen and talk to you and find out like what you thought and what your source really is in your life, and work around ways to protect that. and ways to help build it and make sure the legacy continued forward. But throughout the past couple of years, it's been fascinating to watch. You know, you have segments of clients that really get concerned. Some clients are cool as a cucumber, so to speak. And some people, you know, you have to do a lot of work with, which is great. That's what we do.
Right.
But fascinating when you start to kind of peel it all back and see, you know, some of the clients that have their source with God and some of their clients have their source with things that maybe aren't so stable, like the markets that maybe go up and down here and there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. Every once in a while they go up and down. Let's talk about mental health. You obviously partner with Crosswinds Counseling for corporate counseling for your employees. Why was that an important step for you to take?
I think it's important, you know, given my background, right? You know, that's what my dad did for a living.
Yeah.
You know, he's helped thousands of people. There's not a restaurant we wouldn't go to where someone will come up and thank him. And it's always good to have additional resources for your people. You know, there's only so much you can do. And you certainly want to have a professional relationship, but also provide resources above and beyond what you can do for yourself, you know, what you can do for them. And so it's been a great partnership. And the healthier your team is, you know, the healthier you are, the healthier your family is, the healthier their families are.
Right.
And ultimately, you know, the outcomes of your clients are going to be better as well. So the holistic approach is really important.
You mentioned your dad. He was in counseling for about 40 years,
Yeah.
which is an unusually long career in counseling because it takes an emotional, mental toll on the counselors too to go through that much stuff over that many years. What did you learn watching your dad go through that? What were some of the lessons being kind of in the front row to his career?
He worked a lot, you know, and so he looked at his work as a ministry. And he worked, you know, in the public sector for, you know, hospitals, but also had a private practice. And, you know, I just think he poured his heart and soul into that work, and he found fulfillment there, you know, and a lot of significance. And so whenever I started my career, I wanted to have both, you know, success and significance, financial success and significance.
Right.
And you look at someone like my dad that's been doing that for so long. It is fascinating because you know, they're like linebackers or running backs. It's like a 7-year career and they're done. But I think his relationship with Christ, you know, and him putting all those burdens instead of internalizing all that, giving it back to God, I truly believe is why he was able to do it for so long and also found it as his calling, you know. And if we go back to kind of talk about the pandemic a little bit and people's money, I mean, you've got, you know, whenever the tide came out and came down with the pandemic, we're all isolated, we're all at home, things are very, very tough for everybody. People that had a lot of success, you know, success it's a tricky thing because when you chase it, you find it, and then you want more. And then it's not as satisfying. You know, there's a big hole in our heart, right, that God put there, but it doesn't fill that piece of it. And so oftentimes I'll meet clients or people out that have tremendous amounts of, you know, financial success or what we would all think is, you know, success, but you know they're searching for something more, and it's a significance piece, you know. And so the real, I think, you know, kind of intersection is success and significance, where you can pair those two together, you know. So I look at my parents, and, you know, they're people of great spiritual significance, you know, and they chose fields of service, and that's where I wanted to pair those two together, of success and significance. So when I'm working with somebody, you know, in the wealth management space, I try to figure out where they're at on that spectrum and meet them where they're at on that spectrum, you know, and
it's
help them meet their goals. It is, you know, and some people continue to chase the success thing forever, which is a little bit of a trap. It can be really, it's a sneaky thing.
Right.
Because you end up at the end of your life with a lot of stuff, but what they're really searching is significance, you know, and so that's, I talk about that a lot with our clients is, you know, where are we finding our success and where are we finding our significance and how do we kind of pair those two together to ultimately create generational wealth, but also to keep things going where you want them to go.
Yeah. Matt, thank you so much for not only being here, but what you're doing in our community, investing into people and your employees through mental health. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. Every week we carve out a little time in our show for you to get to know one of our counselors and for them to share their thoughts with all of you. Tonight, we are pleased to have John Lizey with us. He's here, and he's going to go over a topic that has resulted in an enormous amount of counseling, marriage, and specifically fighting within marriage.
Hi, I'm John Lizey. I'm a therapist at Crosswinds, and one of my favorite things to do is work with married couples, people in relationships, and all of us, if we're honest, we argue and we fight. You know, we're different, but it's not really if you fight. As marriage researcher John Gottman would say, it's not if you fight, but how you fight that actually determines if your relationship's going to last. And he's developed these 4 horsemen as ways to look at your relationship and see if you're fighting fair, or if you use the boxing metaphor, if you're hitting above the belt. But these 4 horsemen are ways of kind of fighting dirty or hitting below the belt. So I want to walk you through those. The first one is the horseman of criticism. And this is where somebody brings a legitimate issue that needs talked about in a relationship. And in the sense of criticism, now instead of talking about the issue, we're actually attacking the person, saying things like "you always" and "you never" as an example of criticism, or like "what's wrong with you?" Now we're not talking about the issue, we're attacking the person. The second horseman is that of contempt, and this is where one person has a sense of superiority over the other, and this comes out as sarcasm, sometimes it's eye-rolling or mockery. Other times it can be hostile humor, where somebody is making fun of the other person and there's an edge to it. The third horseman would be one of defensiveness, where again one of the partners brings up a legitimate issue and the other person will flip it back on them and say something like, "Well, there's no pleasing you, so I don't even know why I try." Again, we're now not talking about the issue, but we're attacking the character of the person. And the last horseman is the one of stonewalling, where one of the people, typically it's the man, but gets up, storms out, slams the door, goes out to the garage, or flips on the TV, and basically just gives the silent treatment and says, "You're not even worth dealing with." And again, that's very detrimental and toxic to a relationship. So if you recognize any of those horsemen in your conflict with your partner or significant other, maybe you recognize all 4 of them, but it's very important that you work on that together, and if you can get those out of your relationship, it will ensure that your marriage, your relationship will last for the long haul.
Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we take a few minutes to hear a message from one of the Crosswinds leaders about the most important word in the title of our show, hope. Tonight, we welcome back Crosswinds executive Gordon Haynes. Gordon is going to talk to us about hope and the role we can play in having hope.
Hi, my name is Gordon, and I'm a member of the Crosswinds executive team. Over the past several months, I've talked to you about hope, and it's such an important topic. And interestingly, I was reading a book and I found a definition of hope that really spoke to me. And that definition is this: hope is the strong belief that your future can be better and brighter than your past, and that you have a role to play in that. I think that's really critical. What's our role in realizing the hope that we want to have? People that have hope are zealots about really going after their goals. They actually set actionable goals and work towards something because they have that strong hope that God gives them. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, God talks about the hope he has for us, the hope that we find joy, that we find success, that we're happy. And he really wants that for us. And so, to have hope and then to realize that hope means that we have to work for it. Doesn't mean we'll get it right away. Doesn't mean there won't be setbacks. But God wants us to succeed and is there with us. We have this misconception that as a Christian, I'm never going to have adversity. And that's really false. The Bible tells us that we will have adversity, but the promise and the hope that God gives us is that he will be with us through that adversity to help us gain success. But we have a role to play. I have an example for you. I know a young police officer. He was shot in the line of duty. Fortunately, it wasn't a life-threatening wound, but he lost the use of his left arm. The doctors weren't sure how much use he was ever going to get back because of the damage that was done to his muscles. At any point in time, he could have taken a disability, left law enforcement, and gone and pursued some other career, but he didn't want that. The doctors gave him hope that he could recover, and that's what he wanted to do because he felt his calling was to serve people through law enforcement. I'm happy to say a year later, he's back on full duty with full use of his left arm and doing amazing thing. And the way he got there was he set a goal. He hoped that he could get back to doing what he was doing, and he went after it. And it isn't that he didn't have setbacks. It isn't that there weren't disappointments. It was that he had the hope that God gave him that he could have what he wanted, and he went for it. We can all do that in our life. We can know that God has that hope and that promise for us, and that all we have to do is work for it and trust in God.
Thanks, Gordon. Great reminders for all of us tonight. Before we leave, I want to take a moment and focus on our workforce. Like the rest of the world, we are looking for wonderful women and men to pour into the lives of others and to help them when they need it most. You can check out all of the career opportunities we have at crosswindscounseling.org/careers. There are opportunities for people who aren't counselors and therapists as well. We also need great people in the office to support those helping others in the field. If you know of a qualified counselor or therapist and feel like they would be a great fit, please let them know about Crosswinds. The need for counselors has never been higher than it is right now. Well, as we wrap up tonight, thanks again to our partners in bringing you Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling, Tesco, Shepherd Community Center, and Prime 47 downtown. And thanks to all of you for spending part of your Thursday evening with us. We greatly appreciate it. We'll see you next Thursday night right here on WHMB TV 40. Stay safe and be blessed.